episode, we sit down with Julie Rowe-Lash, Executive Vice President of External Relations and Community Engagement for Pacers Sports and Entertainment.
Over the course of her impressive leadership roles, including 5 years as the commissioner of the Horizon League, Julie has witnessed and created impactful programs and causes that span more than 25 years in both collegiate athletics and professional sports.
We recently had the opportunity to connect with Julie through our partners at Indiana Sports Corps, and were immediately taken by her willingness to jump in and offer her support. Her leadership in Indianapolis, collegiate, and now professional sports is exactly what being a champion for change is all about, and we are thrilled to have been able to spend this time with her.
Listeners, Champion for Change, Julie Rowe-Lash.
Julie, it's so great to have you. I would start by saying thanks for taking the time, especially in what is such a busy season for you. But for you, it's always a busy season, whether it is truly now in the thick of basketball season or not. It's a 12-month-a-year task that you have, juggling all that you do. And starting broadly, before we get into the specifics of, in particular, your current role, your still relatively new role, you are so accomplished, and you obviously have a sports background, but coming out of law school, no doubt your opportunities were immense. What has it been that not only pulled you to sports first and foremost, but has kept you now in sports with all of these roles and the way that your career has progressed and grown and developed?
Well, thank you for having me, to Chrissy and you. It's always good to be with you. I also appreciate your comments. So I did not, I didn't plan on working in sports. Maybe that's why I've stayed. And I'll tell you though, I've always had a passion for sports. I think because I found myself in sports. I know whatever an individual's passion is, right? Whether it's fine arts or the community, whatever it is, when they find themselves in that space, I think we naturally are drawn to it. So for me, it was basketball at a very young age. I would get dropped off at the gym. I grew up in a small town. I would never drop my kids off at a gym now, by the way, but I would get dropped. Different times, small town still. I've asked my parents about that a few times, but I would get dropped off and I would just play pickup basketball, and I learned a lot of life lessons, but I also lost myself in a positive way in that space. So I've always been drawn to sports, and I think that's perhaps why my career has stayed so close to sports in many different iterations.
Your role now with Pacers Sports and Entertainment, what was it that drew you from your role, obviously longtime commissioner of the Horizon League, immense growth with that league under your guidance? What pulled you to the opportunity now with the Pacers?
It is interesting because Laura had worked in college sports for over 25 years. That's why I live here in Indianapolis, because I moved here when the NCAA headquarters relocated. And I thought I would finish my career in college sports. I loved what I was doing with the Horizon League and being able to impact, over 4,000 student athletes. And we had these strong mid-major schools really making an impact. I then got involved with Indiana Sports Corp, and I saw the force that is Pacers Sports and Entertainment relative to not just our sports ecosystem here, but the community. And then I had a leadership role with WNBA All-Star last summer, and I really saw firsthand the power of the PSNE brand through Pacers and Fever and their investment in the community, and I loved it. All-Star ended. I thought that was a wonderful opportunity to be on the board, and I was back to work, so to speak. And then Mel Raines, the CEO of Pacers Sports and Entertainment, reached out and said, "Hey, I've got a position. I think that you would be a perfect fit for it." So I was naturally intrigued, and then we had coffee a few times, and the more I learned about it, it seemed like an incredible opportunity, and it has been.
You mentioned Mel and yourself. Here in Indianapolis, we also have forces like Allison Millington with Penske. I feel very spoiled that we have the number of influential women in sports that we do, in particular in the city of Indianapolis, as leaders for the city, the entire sports landscape. It is International Women's Month. From your experiences and your growth in sports, how are you seeing, or what is helping to create more opportunities for women in leadership positions, maybe that weren't there 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because it does seem like there has been, especially the last 5 years or so, a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, like I said, I spent the last, I don't want to say quarter century, but it was 25 years in college sports. And when I started, when I was vice president of enforcement at the NCAA, that was big news because there hadn't been a female leading enforcement. And I think I was the first vice president to go on maternity leave at the NCAA, which is very interesting. But notwithstanding that, then when I became a commissioner, there were, I think, 5 female commissioners, and now there's over 10 of 32. So that tide is changing. You're seeing more women lead Division I athletics departments, which are, in many cases, like semi-pro franchises. So you're seeing women move into these C-suite places. And then as you noted, I mean, Mel is one of 5, by the way, female CEOs of NBA, the business side, if you will, of NBA, and of course, the FIBA. So when you look at the changing tide now of women leading, I do think there's something special happening here in Indianapolis. And I haven't quite put my finger on it, other than now we've launched this 2050 vision to be the epicenter of sport with one of those 5 pillars to ensure that we are the capital of women's sports. And now we're really drilling down to what does that mean? I think it means the capital of women's sports events, not just WNBA All-Star, but Women's Final Four that's coming back here in 2028. I think it's the capital of women's sports tech. We have 32 tech companies that have relocated to Indy, and I believe we're at 25 to 30% of female CEOs of those tech companies, sports tech. It's women's sports, not just events, but teams. Of course, we've got the Fever and the Ignite, and Indy 11 has a team. What are some other female sports teams that we can bring here? And then I do think it's growing the pipeline of women leading in sport. So perhaps we've been lucky as a city and state to have female leading in sport, but now we need to be positioned for that. And I think as we look at moving towards this 2050 capital of women's sports, part of that means we need to have women leading.
Absolutely. And I had the opportunity, fortunately, in my role, getting to cover a lot of different sports. Last fall, I was in New York working with, in particular, a group of women who have strong basketball ties, and the majority of them had been in Indianapolis for the WNBA All-Star game, and they just raved. They said, we didn't know what to expect. We hadn't spent a lot of time in Indy, but they were absolutely blown away by the experience of the WNBA All-Star game here. From your firsthand experience, not just with that, but in college athletics as well, what makes a lasting impact from a sporting event that is going to help generate this vision for that 2050 impact?
Yeah, I think it's when these events come, and we've, I think as a city, done a good job, and now we want to move to doing a great job of not just hosting the event so that the attendees and like the women you described come and they're just really overwhelmed by this isn't just an event, this is a movement relative to what's happening in the city. But how, and to me, that's a legacy element as well. So, and I'll even share, like after coming out of WNBA All-Star, one of the legacy initiatives that we've launched, and this was sponsors like PSNE, but led by the Indiana Sports Corp and Sarah Meyer and Sherry Fella from Bloombase, we've launched this We Are Next initiative. And the idea, in fact, they just met yesterday, but we've got a cohort of 25 women who are emerging leaders at the mid to senior level point of their career, not quite executive, but that's where they aspire. They're coming together for some really in-depth leadership development and training, and it's taking the gloves off a bit and getting into some of the challenges that they need to address within their own leadership walk before they're ready for that next step. So this cohort graduates around the men's Final Four, and it's the Joanne Scott initial cohort named after Joanne Scott that literally runs the men's Final Four for the NCAA, retiring later this year. But our vision is to do this every year with a new group of 25 women, and we have a visual of 25 here, and you're standing on the shoulders, so that by the end of 4 years, we now have 100 women who are ready for that next step. So hence We Are Next. But the idea is, I think that's a legacy. That's an example of, yeah, the WNBA All-Star was awesome, But and there were several byproducts of that, but one of the legacy initiatives was, let's grow the next generation of women leaders, and let's do it right here.
And that's undoubtedly a pivotal experience for those who will graduate from that program. Was there a pivotal moment in your own career that you feel like put you on the trajectory for the opportunities that you've had and to put you in the position that you are now?
Sometimes I feel like I might have been Forrest Gump, like the opportunities were happening and they were big, but I didn't always know it at the time.
It's sometimes better that way.
I guess so, right? So then you look back and you're like, oh, holy cow, that was a pivotal moment when I met so-and-so. And I trace it back to, as I think about it, it's been mentors, some women, some men who would tap me on the shoulder and say, you're doing a great job, and now I want you to take on this opportunity or this initiative. And when I didn't see that in myself. So it happened at the NCAA when I thought, I'm going to be a leader of a team of investigators or a director, and I'm going to stay here for a while. And my mentor, who was the vice president of enforcement, said, you need to be me when I retire. Even though you're going to be a lot younger, you need to step into this role. And that means you need to go meet the Big Ten commissioner. You need to go have the top 10 football coaches who know you and will tell you what's actually happening in the college football environment. You've got to go out and build relationships. So that, to me, was a pivotal, and then I did it. And I was a little scared the first time I went to Michigan into the big house and sat down with Lloyd Carr, who was then the coach, or Mac Brown at Texas. But that's where I felt a little bit like Forrest Gump in those moments. But I knew I needed to be there to build those relationships, and then follow up, obviously, on what I was learning and carry that with me. And then with the Horizon League, when I remember I had started my consulting business, I literally bumped into John LaCrone, who was then commissioner. And he said, hey, let's get together for lunch. And I thought it was to hire me as a consultant. And then about an hour in, I realized he wants to hire me as his COO. And then opportunities unfolded from there for me to succeed him. So there has been a positioning, but there's also been, I think, appreciation for others sometimes tapping me on the shoulder. And that's what we got to do, right? As we move through our careers, is tap others on the shoulder and bring them along.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of that whole, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready too.
Yeah.
That if you continue to be prepared and do your job well and over deliver, right? Those people wouldn't be extending the invitations and continuing to try to tee you up for what's next if you weren't already showing them that you were already ready for it, before that.
Right. He's willing.
Yeah, that's right. She doesn't know that she doesn't want to do it yet. But in those roles, so, obviously you just have gone through all of these very high level experiences where you're at the top, not just affecting policy and decision and, org. I think arguably you're affecting change in doing so. And, from our platform, I'd just love to know, what were some of those firsthand experiences for you, kind of those Forrest Gump moments of like, wow, I think something really cool just happened here, where it maybe wasn't about the trajectory of your career, but you're seeing something shift, whether it's sports specific or community related or, within kind of the membership of the groups you're serving?
Yeah, I can think of at least, there's a lot just because I've been around for a while now. So what I can think of two that are fairly recent. One was in the midst of COVID when we had really paused college sports. And it was really during those summer months when we were working on getting sports back up and running. And during that period, I was also on the executive committee of the Sports Corp. And we started talking about building a bubble, even if we weren't sure if competition was going to be held. We knew we were supposed to host the Final Four, right? And that was I say that in air quotes, for 2021. Yeah. And then as the planning became so sophisticated and in-depth, it became pretty clear from the NCAA's perspective that they weren't going to be able to build bubbles across the country to host the regional sites. They were going to need to bring all the games to one location, and where better to do that than Indianapolis. So then moving from my sports corp hat to the commissioner of the Horizon League, we were the host of all the games that happened in Lucas Oil Stadium. And then we started to we literally reached out to the other 5 hosts, including Pacer Sports Entertainment, of course, with Cambridge, and the Ball State was the institutional host here, and the 4 other sites. And in true Indy fashion, we started organizing our own Zooms, sort of like this, but from our homes, to talk about how could we stage all of March Madness in our city and state so that when a team played at one facility and went to the next, it was a seamless experience. And we were really operating as one, if you will. And the NCAA got word that these calls were happening, and they said, "Hey, can we join?" Because we were just trying to get ahead of the game, so to speak. And it seemed daunting, and then it was fun, right? Because now you've got all this brain power and people's willingness to really do anything they could to host all of those games. And there were 67 games, and I think all games were played but one, which was really nothing short of a miracle. So that was fantastic, and to be a part of that. I think, though, on a smaller level, when I was with the Horizon League and we brought our championship to Indianapolis, we said, what can we do in and around this championship so it's a community event, not just playing a few games? And we recognized that our championship day was on International Women's Day, and there wasn't anything really significant happening in the city. So then we said, what if we held this event, made it free, got some women leaders up on the stage to talk about their experience, bring in someone like you, Laura, who could be our MC and ask the right questions and keep it engaging, get somebody to sponsor food and drink, and then it's in between our women's and our men's champ game. So we started, I think the first year we had 150 people there. I think I coerced Mel Raines to be on the panel, or that might have been year 2, but we got the heavy hitters that are in our city. And then we kept building it so where last year we had KeyBank on as a title sponsor with a 3-year deal. We had over 300 people there, a lot of younger women, which was the point, so that they could see these women who were accomplished and be inspired by them. So, and it became like a fun networking event, which is the point. You're supposed to have fun while you're building relationships. So that was one of those ideas of, hey, we're actually making money and we're doing good while serving the community. Like all those things can come together. And I think the final piece would be when I took over as chair of the Indiana Sports Corp board, we recognized we've been around for 40 years as an organization. We now need to start planning for the next 40, which seemed a little daunting as well. But then we really started to think about it, and we challenged ourselves to go big. So that's why we did establish this 2050 vision, which I don't think other cities or states are doing yet. But we wanted to put something out there that was challenging and a bit of a North Star. And it's been awesome because now it's not our vision, right? It's the city and state sports strategy. So now you're seeing people see themselves in different lanes and how they can contribute to moving the needle.
I love that. And I think what stands out to me so much in all of those experiences you just recounted were that there were groups. And it wasn't an individual effort or, even an individual organization. It took the power of all of these disparate, organizations to come together and really make something happen on a large scale. So to that degree, in your new role, newish, or what, a couple
2 months
in at
Still
this
there.
point. Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm curious, from your perspective, what you think makes a great community engagement strategy, and how are you hoping to affect that at PSNE?
Okay. My answer has to have a qualifier because I am still
Sure. Yeah.
And I will say, like, we literally just had, we called it a mini retreat today, but with Corey Wilson, who leads our community engagement effort, Tracy Ellis Ward, that leads some external effort with other partnerships in our community, and then Aaron, that really leads our communication strategy in the community. And all of those folks really are part of this external team. And we really talked about what is it that we as an organization can do, knowing that, yes, there's a business function here. So obviously there's a piece to drive revenue to contribute to the overall enterprise. But as Mel Raines says, we are a company with a very big heart. And so knowing that we want to really also drive impact, and you don't always have to drive revenue when you're making an impact, as long as that aligns with your overall mission. And we've talked about that. And then I think it's also exposure, because I've also learned there's so much already happening here that I think the Hoosier humility we might have taken too far. We need to do a little more storytelling of what we're doing. And so as the newbie, I'm like, wow, we should be talking about that. So I might be calling Laura, you and your friends to help
Absolutely.
us better tell these stories. But the point is, to answer your question, we're really trying to continue some of these initiatives that are already well underway, like Drive and Dish. The Fever Fund is getting off the ground, but you look at Drive and Dish with the food insecurity initiatives, the State of Play, where we resurface several courts around the state. How do we put that in a larger context? And that's what we're undertaking now, is as we look at 2030 to 2032, where do we want our community engagement to be? So we're elevating these teams, because our teams are awesome, but also connecting that back to our PSNE brand.
I think a lot of times people are attracted to sport for obviously the entertainment value, right? And the competition. And what some may not be aware of is how much of that community connection is built through sport. And you look at these legacy projects and the impact that they have firsthand, whether it was, your experience at the NCAA, Horizon League, or in your new role. Is there an experience that you can think back to that really resonated in terms of how great of an impact these organizations can have within community? I think about, in particular, the investment in women's sports and seeing so many young girls who are now interested in basketball because the Fever's right there. And now there's, the opportunity for them to just go to a game, or the emergence of flag football. Now young women have the opportunity in high school to be able to play a sport that they, haven't previously had. And that accessibility point, I think, creates such great opportunity for that holistic community connection.
I think you gave a better answer than I could, but to your question, because for instance, I've learned about our junior hoops camps and clinics that we offer, and I get them confused. The camps are free, the clinics are paid, or it might be vice versa, but it's over 1,200 kids in our state are getting exposed to basketball, and we're bringing it to them. And we literally have been talking about how do we take it to even more communities, and frankly, some underrepresented communities and different ethnic communities where basketball might not be a sport popular in their native country, but it is really obviously important to our city and state, but also fun and can give them confidence in the development side of it. And, we were talking about legacy projects. A week ago, Saturday, I went to the third session of Fever Confidence, which was born out of WNBA All-Star. But the whole idea here is, how do we prepare high school girls who are hopefully headed off to their next chapter, whether that's college or vocational school, but have the confidence that's needed so that they can stand on their own. And so now this is a program funded through, and we work with McCoy, but the idea is it's a whole curriculum, and they have to come, I think it's for 8 Saturdays for the better part of the day, and it's intensive leadership training. There's physical training, so they had to do rock climbing, and some of them are athletes, some of them are not. But the point is getting that holistic development, talking about mental health and wellness, and how do you take care of yourself, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and then the academic rigors. And then the last session I attended, and Rachel Simon was at one of the tables engaging for multiple hours with her team, because she's competitive too. They were talking about superheroes, and they were building towards the idea of we all can be a superhero because we all do have a super talent. And sometimes we don't always know what that is, and it takes a while to find it, but it's in there. And it was really like you never know what that one, even a 4-hour experience, right, can have down the road based on the challenges and obstacles that they're going to face.
It's cool you mentioned Rachel. It's really unique too when we talk about Indianapolis, the connection of ownership and having very present ownership, the Simon family, the Ursay family, obviously, and their various roles, and to have them who are not just invested in, the outcomes on the field, on the court, but also invested in community and present within the community. And Julie, I know that you probably rarely get a day off. When you are not working an event or, involved in the operations of an event, like, are you ever able to shut it off and just be able to watch and enjoy? Or are you constantly, like, if you're watching sports on TV, there's something that you're taking away, what can I learn from this? Or you're at a game and you're taking it in, like, just can you go be a fan?
I can definitely be a fan, and I will answer that question. I will say, though, being now on the inside, if you will, of PSNE, I'm seeing firsthand the commitment and involvement and dedication of the Simon family, and it's awesome. Like, for instance, I've been now to 2 all-staff meetings, and there's usually 1 or 2 members of the Simon family there. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily with the speaking role, just to be there to support staff and be available. And it's also, we were talking about women leading in sport, the fact that the Ursay daughters are owning an NFL franchise and have a leadership role in running that franchise and the Kicking the Stigma initiative. Like, we're spoiled a little bit here, I think, from a role model standpoint, if that's possible, but that's awesome. Like, so I just hats off to both. Okay, so can I be a fan? We have 2 daughters. They've played different sports. They both have focused more on basketball of late in their teenage years. I am a reserved fan, believe it or not. Number one, because of my commissioner role and overseeing officiating for so long, we never criticize officials in our house. Both, we might say later, boy, that call, I saw it differently.
Tough. Yeah.
But we do not criticize officials. Definitely never in the midst of a game, but even on the home front, I don't think that's a good thing. But in the midst of going to games, whether it's my kids' games or pro, I mean, if I'm working a game here, I'm like zoned in on every aspect of it. It's hard for me to, like, I'm a Fever fan, a season ticket holder. Even as I was going to games last year before I worked here, I was constantly surveying their sponsorship activation, their event management, the operations of it, the fan experience, because all those things matter. And you want the fans to have an incredible experience. And now we talk about this, we want those moments to be pinnacle, because that might be the only time somebody comes to Cambridge or goes to Lucas Oil Stadium, right? And so if this is the first and only experience with us, we've got to make it premium for them and that in the space that makes sense. So I don't usually turn it off, so to speak, but I love sports, so that's okay. And I do, I watch sports, but I will sometimes just listen to the news because that's kind of my escape, I guess, when I'm commuting.
What a lovely transcription you're getting on a daily basis of listening to the news as your outlet. Wow.
Yeah, how about that? Well, at these days, not so much. Maybe if we could just do something else.
Well, a couple things on that, Julie. Number one, my daughter is actually enrolled for one of those camps or clinics. I'm not sure which.
Great.
Either. But her, the community, the rec league, that she plays in, the coaches send a text, hey, we've all got tickets to go, and to watch these. They're 11, this age group, but I think the league is anywhere from, 5 to 14 or something like that. These kids as teams are so excited to go down. And, a lot of them have been before, and some of them maybe never have, but the fact that they are getting this kind of premium VIP behind the scenes experience and, I get this t-shirt and a ball. And do you think Caitlin's going to be there? And, all of this just, building the excitement for it is really special to watch on this side. And then, taking that further, can be a very affordable experience to go see a Pacers game or a Fever game, more so than going to see a concert these days, more so than other sporting events, for sure. Why do you think it's important for that price point to be accessible? And how does that contribute to growing the game?
Well, thank you for your comments, because I appreciate that. And it's better coming from you than from me working here that we strive for that. But and that's frankly starts with ownership in the Simon family and Mr. Simon Herb. He is committed to making attending a game an accessible event. And of course, we don't want to advertise this, but we give away a lot of tickets, and not to fill seats, but to provide that experience and that opportunity. And we try to be mindful as to where we're providing those experiences. On the other hand, we also offer, to your point, those group sales are critical in terms of one, it's more fun, right? If you go with a friend or you go with a coach or you have some sort of development opportunity, but then also it's okay to just go to a game and enjoy it. Like that's, we want it to be fun. And you think about literally every entry point from the garage or parking on the street, which as a city, we're generally very affordable compared to other cities within a reasonable radius from a parking standpoint. But then just coming in the building, you want to make the food accessible in terms of a price point. But then, yes, it's just that ticket. And of course, I'm biased, but there's not a bad seat in Cambridge. I've literally now walked the entire building several times, and the sky deck is a cool place to be too. And you're way up there, but
it is.
You got
terrifying.
Cool. You're not in the Heights, don't go there. But you got the whole landscape of Cambridge, which is it's of course that part's I'm a bit of a commercial, but I don't think there's a better place to watch a basketball game.
Yeah, I'd rival that maybe only with Hinkle as a particular grad.
That's good. Different scope and size.
That's right. So Julie, on all these groups, I mean, obviously, you're new in the PSNE role, but whether it had been with the Horizon League or, Sports Corps, the groups that you work with in the community, you've seen a lot come and go, Project 44 being one of them. In your experience, what do you think makes a cause stick? And what do you think helps community get behind whatever the initiative is?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's really, because I don't know that I've seen a cause that's not worthy, right? I mean, there's so many needed causes. And what you all have done with Project 44 is even, I think, educate and raise awareness of this incredible need, and then connect the dots of how we can, as a community, and not Indy, but a large community, come together to help this cause and lift it up. So to me, you got to get those champions and those ambassadors. Sometimes it's corporate sponsors because they have a larger pulpit in which to showcase and send out the information. But you've got to get the champions, ambassadors behind it. And then as you all do, you start to show the impact. And that the storytelling to me is often the most compelling part, because then people really do see, okay, this is why this cause exists. And if I get involved, whether that's with my time, talent, or treasure, this is how I can try to drive change. And I think that's the other piece, is letting people know your time, talent, treasure, time to me is volunteering, right? Talent is you're serving in a leadership way, and then treasure, obviously, you're donating. It can be small or big, depending on where you are in your journey. But that, to me, that's where the causes stick. When you have an ambassador, you can really communicate the impact, and then you show people how they can get engaged based on where they are and how much they can give you.
Yeah. Well, and just from our perspective, I kind of stalked you down at one of the Sports Corps events and just,
because you're very good, as you should be.
But, just again, your personal support is so appreciated, and honestly, in no way a reflection of you, but it was a little bit surprising to be met with such immediate, of course, what can I do? And truly an engaged response in that, we push and fight hard, for most of the relationships we have. And we're told no very, very often. And so part of what we are, hoping to affect through Project 44 is not just, of course, registry initiatives, but it's also just the idea that finding a way to say yes can very significantly change the trajectory of whatever we're talking about. Right. So I just, on a personal note, wanted to say thank you for, your willingness, and just in the midst of probably some of the most chaotic days of your life, saying, sure, I got that,
No,
and texting and emailing, it was truly felt on this end. So,
Well, it was my honor, and I'm glad that I've gotten to know you even more. I don't think I told you this story, but my first entree to Project 44 was Graham Honecker.
okay.
Hi, Butler. Have I told you
Graham
this?
just texted me while we've been recording right now, but
Okay.
no, I don't think you told me.
Graham, I came to know when I was at the Horizon League because he was on our local organizing committee and helped when we were really trying to grow our championship here in Indianapolis shortly after moving the event from Detroit. And he sends out, his text or email about Project 44, and he was shooting free throws. So he was asking people to donate. And I was like, sure, So I donated. I don't know if it was $5 a free throw. I know my tab was higher than I expected.
He's surprisingly good.
I didn't know how many he was making, and I didn't know how many he was going to be able to shoot. So whenever he sent me, and it was like, you owe me X, or, this is now, I said, holy cow, good for you, Graham, but I don't think you realized you were a sharpshooter. So
Yeah.
it was all for a good cause, but that was and that through, though, that ask, which was a very powerful one. I had heard of Project 44, but then I really came to appreciate it because back to that, you've got such strong ambassadors, a person like Graham saying, hey, will you support me as I go and shoot free throws? Yeah, you're going to say, of course I will. And then you want to learn more about why he's doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that story. Yeah. Graham is a sleeper. I mean, he plays a lot of lunchtime basketball.
I think he's got a hoop in his driveway for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Julie, one of the kind of last questions we always ask all of our guests is, apart from the very last, we'll have you plug what you've got coming up here, but spirit animal. We liked, the moose is our spirit animal. That was Andrew's kind of mascot representative of his big, calm, gentle energy and frame and kind of his overall presence. So we always ask our guests if you had ever thought of a spirit animal before or currently now on the fly, what would it be?
Okay, this is a different one than probably the way I've answered this before because this was an icebreaker question once. But we were like on a group family vacation and somebody asked this. We were all like, "What?" But I recently learned about another cause or initiative about a cancer vaccine, and the individual that was encouraging us, and it was primarily targeted at women to support this, talked about the elephant, the female elephant, and how the female elephants will move into a circle formation when one of them is injured or hurt in any way, and literally to physically protect them.
Wow.
And even kick dirt on them to take the scent off from any predator if they're down, which, I don't know about kicking dirt on people but talk about doing anything it takes. I can relate to that. But then also staying in formation until she and this, and this is real, evidently, until that female elephant is ready to stand on her own. So I think that really resonated with me. I think I bought like 5 of those ornaments and sent them out to some of my female friend elephants who have circled around me when I've needed it. And then I think that's what we do, right? Then whenever we're strong and healthy, we've got to form that outer circle when needed. So that's my long answer of saying I'm an elephant, I guess.
I love it. One of my girlfriends gave me that same ornament. So
yes, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay, Chrissy, I need you to send that to me because now I'm like, I need to get one of these for like every woman who's in our department. Like, and they just did a post like of all the women who are in our organization, and it was so refreshing to see and so cool. And I think about how much I value each of them. So you're gonna have to send it to me, and so value, Julie, your time. I feel like that I have a dozen other questions that I could probably launch your way, but we do want to make sure we have the opportunity. What's next? What's coming up for you that people should know about that you want to share?
Oh, well, thank you for that. We are still in the midst of, obviously, Pacers season, and we are looking forward to the Fever season. So I think that's probably what's next is we're looking at really finishing strong from a Pacer standpoint, and then obviously launching the Fever season. We are excited about, on the Pacers side from a community standpoint, our drive-in dish initiative that Coach Carlisle is behind, and we've partnered with Gleaners. It's really still a new initiative, but this Gleaners to Go, we are literally there's two things. One is the clients are able to have some dignity by choosing the fresh produce that they want, as opposed to just being handed, hey, here's a box of food, you're welcome. And then two, the drive-in dish idea is we're taking the food to different locations for distribution, and we're partnering with Indy Parks on that and then some schools. So we're now in that planning phase of what does this look like through 2030 so that we can really make this a sustainable model where we are coming alongside Gleaners for this food distribution, which I think is just awesome. And then on the Fever side, we just launched the Fever license plate, which goes into the Fever Fund. And I'll just give a teaser. We're not quite ready to go prime time with what the Fever's major community initiative is, but it's awesome. And I've not seen any pro team tackle how they're thinking about this, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, what a great tease. You talk about storytelling. You just segued perfectly into that tease right there. Julie, thank you so very much. Excited for your role, what you're doing, obviously, with Pacer Sports and Entertainment. And then also just immensely grateful to have you here in Indianapolis with the impact and influence that you have, and really appreciate your sharing the time with all of us and everyone listening.
Well, thank you, both of you, for all you do and how you do it. I love being in Indy and Indiana, so I'm glad to be alongside both of you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finding 44. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow Project 44's mission at project44.org and find us on social media at Join Project 44.